both parties will have 50 or 60 people working in staff positions. And those staffs members get really cozy with the lobbyist. And you come in there and you want a great bill, and you look at a lot of legislation we pass is really just study bills. And I'll refuse to vote for them. It costs a couple $1 million. And then the studies, I told somebody it's like that ending scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark. It all goes to that warehouse. And, brother, I've never seen one of those dadgum studies. I've been here 8 years, so I just quit voting for them. But what happens, you get a great bill.
They're back there somewhere.
Yeah, well, you get a great bill, a great idea for a bill. You go to, you present it to the committee, and you need to talk to the staff person that handles that. And they go, well, that's a great piece of legislation, but it's not going to pass. And go, oh, really? Yeah, I tell you what we need to do. Let's make a study of it and then come back next year. Now, our attention span, and I'm guilty of this too, in America, is about 30 minutes. It's like the amount of time we want our pizzas. It's 30 minutes or less.
Yeah.
So this staffer knows it, and the lobbyist who has his or her ear knows it because they've wined them and dined them on a little trip. Maybe it's illegal, maybe it's not. Probably, I think there could be something else going on a lot of times with the lobbyist and the staffers, and they will kill the bill. And then that's why nothing happens. And the chairman is unaware of it or doesn't care because the committees are so big, and it's by design, and both parties are guilty of this. And that is inertly what is wrong with Washington.
All right, Congressman Tim Burchett, you clearly understand the weather in this town better than I do. You're not even going to take off the jacket for this limited interview.
No, and I'm wearing my long underwear in honor of my deceased father. I used to think, what the heck's he always wearing his long underwear for? It's cold outside, not in here, but when you walk outside, you need it.
It is freezing, and I've become weak. Even though I'm from New York originally, I've become weak as a Florida man. But let's start with Game Boy and Hot Pockets, because that seems to be the viral moment of your career. We played it about 20 times on my show. We'll throw it in on B-roll here. But how did that line, it just caught the internet right. How did that just come to your head?
I don't know. That guy, he's a paid tracker, and it's funny, the week later I saw him after it already exploded, and he was asking somebody a question, and I was about to pop in on another smart aleck line. He says, I'm not talking to you. I said, dude, I made you an international celebrity. You ought to write me a dadgum check.
Yeah.
That he's paid by the Democrat Party. It just came to me. Every day we do them, and I put them out. And the one
But you said you never played Game Boy, and you've never had Hot Pockets.
Never have. I just thought, I don't know, God gives me stuff occasionally. He speaks to me, just not in an audible voice. But, it was just kind of funny. And then I said, I'm going to put that out. And I think the vice president got a hold of it, and J.D. Vance and somebody else, and then it exploded after that. I did one earlier. He asked me some question, and I said, you should never wear black socks with short pants. And that hit about 5 million. Same guy. I always told somebody one of these days I'm afraid that he's in that backpack. It's going to be a satchel charge. He's going to take us both to glory, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, let's talk politics for a little bit, because I always talk about Tennessee as sort of, it's on the short list of sane places to live. I lived in Cali for a long time, left during COVID. I happened to go to Florida, but almost did the Nashville thing. Obviously, Texas and some of the countries in the Midwest. What are you guys doing right that the blue states are just doing wrong?
Well, I spent 16 years in the Tennessee General Assembly legislature, 4 years in the House and 12 in the Senate. And, we don't have an income tax, one of the lowest tax states. We do have a sales tax, but we, the inheritance tax, we've done away with a lot of those things. And we run a balanced budget. If you go into a state and they're dropping asphalt, they probably bonded that, which means your grandkids will pay it off. In Tennessee, we have zero debt. It's just it's a debt-free state. And it's funny how people run us down, but you see the U-Haul trucks. I used to have a U-Haul business, and it was tough to get the big trucks. Now you can't give the big trucks away.
Right.
All y'all, if we call y'all refugees. And the funny thing is, the misnomer or whatever, miscalculation by folks is it's all these Yankees coming in here with all their crazy left-wing values. And I find that's not the case. I have a little area, Lenore City, Loudon, and they have it's called the Conservative Club. and I'll speak, and there'll be 150, 160 people come to this, and they're just packed in there to hear me speak, and they're all Yankees, and they're either as conservative as I am or more conservative.
Right.
I always am afraid when somebody asks a question that I'm being set up by the Secret Service or NSA, because it's usually some really conservative question. And they'll say the same thing, more or less, with funny accent. But they, and I like to say East Tennessee is the only place in America where people don't speak with an accent. But it's always the same thing. It's, we came here to get away from that. And we want to warn you all, do not embrace that lifestyle or any of that, because it destroyed where we came from, and we came here because of what you have right now, and we want to keep it that way.
Yeah, I see the same thing in Miami, that there was this worry that, oh my man, they're going to turn this place blue. And although Miami proper did just go blue for the first time in 30 years.
There's a lot more behind that.
Right, there's and only 20% of the people voted. There's a lot of stuff that, but we don't have to go into the minutia of that. So talk to me about the general state of what you're seeing in D.C. right now. From the blue sky, I see a Trump government that I think is really working and doing a lot of good things. And then on the media class, there's just like a lot of complaining.
I see a lot of corruption, honestly. I think President Trump, the trouble with Congress is, when I first got to Congress, I remembered I was used to sit on the second row. Now I sit second row to the back. I call it senator's row. Everybody gets in trouble. They come sit beside me. But I was sitting down there, and one of the old timers leaned over and said, "Tim, how long you been here?" I said, "Mr. Chairman, about 6 months." He goes, "Really?" And he sat back, and I leaned over, and I looked back, and I said, "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" And he said, "Oh, it's a good thing." He said, "Because all these kids up here, they think they're, getting into something else. And when you get to Congress, I think everybody thinks that, you're going to be asked by the president to negotiate a trade deal with North Korea or something, and it's just, if Congress was the NFL, Peyton Manning would still be waiting to get in, because the corruption is that you have to raise so much money, and you have to kiss a lot of butt. And I do a terrible job at both of those, obviously.
So how do you balance what you're doing for your own district versus when you come here and then it becomes about all of the other stuff of politics? My
number one goal is constituent service, always constituent service. And that's what keeps me in office. And we get a lot of media, and that helps name ID. But the reality is, when you help somebody with their disability or VA, it also gives you a good feeling. But it also lets you know why you're actually there. Unfortunately, we're having to take care of problems that we created. I mean, we created this bureaucracy, Congress did, and then we have to fix it by helping our constituents. But I just think that getting back to Congress, Trump won with a overwhelmingly large amount. His percentage was. Congress has got a 3-person majority, and brother, we're literally one flu season away. Reagan said from losing, you're a generation from losing everything.
Yeah,
brother, we're one vote series away from losing everything, and we've got to.
And not all those votes are always guaranteed.
And not all those votes are guaranteed.
Yeah.
And we better start addressing what Trump ran on. The strong border, strong economy, locking up bad people, things like, traditional things. And we, it seems we just can't get out of our own way a lot of times. And honestly, the committee system is made that way by design. It's, we have, both parties will have 50 or 60 people working in staff positions. And those staff members get really cozy with the lobbyist. And you come in there and you want a great bill, and you look at a lot of legislation we pass is really just study bills. And I'll refuse to vote for them. It costs a couple $1 million. And then the studies, I told somebody it's like that ending scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark. It all goes to that warehouse. And brother, I've never seen one of those dadgum studies. I've been here 8 years, so I just quit voting for them. But what happens, you get a great bill.
They're back there somewhere.
Yeah, well, you get a great bill, a great idea for a bill. You go to, you present it to the committee, and somebody, you need to talk to the staff person that handles that. And they go, well, that's a great piece of legislation, but it's not going to pass. And go, oh, really? Yeah. I tell you what we need to do. Let's make a study of it and then come back next year. Now, our attention span, and I'm guilty of this too, in America, is about 30 minutes. It's like the amount of time we want our pizzas. It's 30 minutes or less.
Yeah.
So this staffer knows it, and the lobbyist who has his or her ear knows it because they've wined them and dined them on a little trip. Maybe it's illegal, maybe it's not. Probably, I think there could be something else going on a lot of times with the lobbyist and the staffers, and they will kill the bill. And then that's why nothing happens. And the chairman is unaware of it or doesn't care because the committees are so big, and it's by design, and both parties are guilty of this. And that is inertly what is wrong with Washington.
So with that in mind, do you want Trump to do more just with the stroke of the pen? Obviously, doing everything by executive action is not great, and yet you're telling me that Congress is pretty freaking broke and we got to get some things done.
I agree.
So how do you feel about that?
I think Trump should get on it because we don't have the guts to do it. That's why I'd like to be chairman of that DOJ committee. I don't think I'll get it. For the aforementioned reasons, but we do not have the guts to do it, and I think that's why he did it. Case in point, I think I put like 20 of his executive orders on notice, and obviously some of them got taken up in the big beautiful bill, but a lot of them are still out there languishing, and it just, I get so aggravated, and I always say, well, those post offices aren't going to name themselves. When I'm talking to the press out in front of the getting ready to go vote, I got to go, and they, but that's pretty much the problem right there, brother.
All right,
and,
so
and it's very frustrating.
So you'd be for Trump doing things faster via the pen. What do you make of your colleagues on the other side? Because 10 years ago, I was a Democrat, and I am probably in some sense further right than you now because I know what that thing is. To me, they've almost completely lost their mind. I'm doing about 15 interviews today. We reached out to dozens of Democrats. I got one. I got Ro Khanna willing to come in. Nobody else will talk to me.
Ro actually believes it, though. That's the difference between him and a lot of the liberals.
I disagree with him on almost everything, but I will give him respect for always sitting with me.
I do, too. But I like Ro. He represents, oddly enough, one of the wealthiest areas of Silicon Valley.
Well, he's going to need their money to do some of these programs he wants to do.
Absolutely. They're going to have to fund it. Ultimately, I don't think that's the goal. I think the goal is to wreck, ultimately, some of the more intellectual members of the party. I think their goal is to wreck everything and create this so they can recreate it in some sort of woke-utopia, as I like to call it.
So what do you make of the general state of the Democrats?
Most of my problems are with the Republicans, honestly, because I know the Democrats are Marxist. AOC, Marxist. Like I said, I call her, she's my friendly neighborhood Marxist. We're friends. We get along. Steve Cohen and I get along probably close to Steve as anybody. He called my mama when my daddy died when we were in the state legislature. We raised the speed limit in Tennessee, but him calling my mama, I can't get past that. He'll always be my friend. Jared Moskowitz, good friend. Jonathan Jackson, Jesse's son, he's a good friend. We're in a little bipartisan prayer group together. I don't agree with them, but I at least I know where they stand.
But what do you make of the energy of the party that it's going in that direction, which is not what a Democrat was?
I think
10 years
they've been
ago.
ambushed. I think they really have, and they use the carrot and the stick. And it's the old thing in Congress that you just you'll destroy the country as long as you get to stay in charge. What is it about rule? I'd rather rule in hell than serve in heaven. And I think that's sort of the Democrat motto. They've let themselves be overtaken by this far left agenda. I always tell people, it's not Harry Truman's Democrat Party. I say it's not even Bill Clinton's. It may be Hillary Clinton's, but it's not their party anymore.
I don't think it's Hillary Clinton's even. She comes off as moderate to me compared to most.
If you see what New York and all that, but it's publicly educated kids. We've turned our back on education. We another case in point is when Beto O'Rourke ran for Senate down in Texas, and he almost won. I think he was running against Cruz.
2.9 points, crazy.
And what did they say? Oh, it's all these people moving in from California, Chicago, New York. As it turned out, no. It's homegrown socialist. We have, these legislators, state legislators, they get invited to a ball game, they sit in the skybox, and they just let the stuff ride. The Charlie Kirk stuff, where we started kicking out professors and administrators that said awful things, great, let's do that. But they're like kudzu. We cut them off and then 5 more pop up. What we got to do is get to the people that are hiring and firing these people. These presidents of these universities are far left. Their hiring practices are far left. They're their human resources, far left. And then we wonder, and then they tell, we don't celebrate diversity, you right-wingers. Well, ask them how many dadgum Republicans they have in their sociology department.
Right.
Or in their philosophy department, or any of these other departments. And you'll find that it's far left, and that's who they go after. They go after people like themselves. And it's just a cluster of groupthink. And, they surround themselves with people that are, that think like they do. And so there is no real diversity, and it just goes farther and farther to the left. And we've allowed that. And this is public institutions that we're getting this, homegrown Marxists, as I call them. And we've turned our back on that, and because we're afraid to stand up. I always say, when I'm conservative and I'm a Christian, and I talk to a lot of Christian folks, and I say, we need to tell preachers they got to start preaching the gospel. They got to start telling the truth. And when you're at at work, and somebody says something that you don't agree with, don't walk away. Disagree. You don't have to jump in their face. You can disagree on Facebook, in your flower group or whatever at work. Stand up for what's right, because the left sure as heck is, and too many times we just let them walk over us, and our kids do the same thing, and then our kids are indoctrinated, and then we just let it go. And dadgummit, we can't just let it go anymore. We're going to lose our country.
So to that point, my last question will be this. I mean, how do you think we can actually get out of this? You just mentioned my friend Charlie Kirk. To me, it seems the state of discourse has gotten significantly worse without Charlie, that I think we now, as great as he was, I think we're realizing he really was a dam against a lot of bad stuff. How do you think we turn this?
Well, I think we better realize that we didn't get here overnight. We didn't get in this spot. And the Democrats and the left had a far left agenda. I mean, it's been going on for quite some time. I think we better start taking it back piece by piece, and we better not give up. We better not give up. I see that flag behind you there, and I think about my mama would, every time they play the national anthem, she would cry because she'd think about her brother Roy, who died fighting the Nazis. And I think about my dad, who was a dean at the University of Tennessee, probably one of the most conservative forces on that campus for 40 years, actually. And he fought the Japanese in the Pacific in the Marine Corps. If I ever had to wake him up, I don't care if we were at the beach or before he died in the nursing home, I'd always have to wake him up by his big toe, because he might wake up on one of those dadgum islands. 18, 19-year-old Marine fighting vicious Japanese. And then I go back to Daddy was saying the blessing one time. It was an election night, and I had won. I was in the legislature, but it was there was a national election going on at the same time. And Daddy said, buddy, let me say the prayer, the blessing. And he did. And he said, Lord, please don't let us lose our country. I thought, wow, a combat veteran, the guy I respected most of anybody in my life, and my best friend. It was breaking his heart what was happening to our country. And that's why people say, Burchett, why don't you just give up if you don't like it so much? That makes me fight that much harder. And we've got to fight. We've got to take our country back. Too many people have sacrificed too much.
We have some work to do.
Thank you, brother.
If you're craving more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics, check out our politics playlist right here. And if you don't want to miss any future videos, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell.